What's the story of the one kid never allowed back over at your house? Me and the kid were around 9 and were playing games on my DS. After she went home I noticed that one of my games was missing. Asked her later if she had it. She said no, but I wasn't really convinced. Few days after that I was on the phone with another friend and told her the story and how I still believed the kid stole the game. Turns out my friend had her phone on loudspeaker and the kid was over and could listen to everything I said. Next time I met her she threw the game at me and insulted me. Didn't want her back at my house afterwards. One of my friends got banned from a kid's house when he was younger cause during a sleepover he reportedly sucked several people's toes. Dang, a sneaky serial toe sucker has to be the weirdest one here. Pretended to be a cat the whole time. I remember him crouched on the stairs on all fours, meowing plaintively and staring at me through the railing while I shook my head at him. No mom, I don't want to go play with him. Yes mom, I will just stay in the kitchen. So's youngest half brother plays kitty too. Granted he's 3, but still weirds me out. I could tolerate it until his slightly older sister started calling it the Pirate P game. Kevin the underwear thief. We were around 10 and playing with Lego in my room. He left to go use the washroom. I vaguely remember thinking he was gone for a while and was planning to joke around with him about having to drop a massive deuce. 10 minutes later I hear my mom exploding and yelling for my stepdad. He had snuck into my sister's room and was shoving her underwear down his pants and she caught him when she was coming up to see if we wanted a snack. Apparently this wasn't the first time either. Never saw Kevin again and his family moved a couple months later. What the frick, Kevin? We never actually banned anyone from the house while my daughter was growing up, but from grades 1-5 we did ask for prior notice before one particular friend came over. We needed time to child-proof the house. For a good 4 years, every time this girl came over she would manage to break something. Sometimes just one thing, sometimes multiple things, sometimes just small items, sometimes it was actual structural damage. If we knew she was coming over, all flatware and glass drinking vessels were put away and paper or plastic was used. All solar yard lights were quickly removed from the walkway. Anything that could smash, squash, or feel physical pain was shepherded out of the vicinity. She wasn't maliciously destructive, she just had no idea where her body was in space. Happily, this turned around for her by middle school to the point where she actually became a pretty good athlete, and she was always a sweetheart, but man, for those few years she was a human wrecking ball. My son was this kid. He was always big for his age, and he just couldn't be gentle about anything. He'd just plow into things and then get sad when they would break. He's in high school now, and his brain finally caught up to his size. It's very kind of you to allow that child in your home. As a parent of that kid, I appreciate it. Neighbor kid started just coming over to hang out with one of my kids. He was never respectful of my kid's stuff and would occasionally throw toys. The day I saw him throw a toy and a rock at our dog was the final straw. I told that little crap to get out of my house and I said he was never allowed to be near my house or my kids again. He lived across the street, and I don't think I saw him more than once after that. His family moved away about 1.5 years later. Jeez, I hate it when kids try to harm dogs. His name was Jacob. This was my 10th birthday. He was messing around and found BB pistol my older brother had. He was pretending to be gangster with it, holding it sideways and talking tough. We kept telling him to put it down, and he keeps yelling about popping a cap in our butt and he accidentally shoots my dad in the leg. My parents call his parents and tell them they need to come pick him up immediately. While they were upstairs on the phone, he accidentally took a bow and shot an arrow down the hall into my bedroom door. Jesus God, this scenario scares me. We live in Texas, where everyone has real guns, so I'm always paranoid when I send my 10-year-old son to someone's house for a playdate. If you see a gun, don't assume it's a toy and don't touch it is our playdate mantra. At my birthday, he fell asleep on the toilet and fell off and got crap everywhere. Instead of cleaning it up, he just left without saying anything. He left his shirt and shoes behind, so he was half naked. The great crap and run, we called it. He was 31 years old. Well, shite. For some ungodly reason I invited a boy that lived behind me over to hang out one afternoon. When he arrived he ate all of my snacks. I literally mean all of my snacks. Ate my brownies and potato chips and goldfish crackers. Spent his whole visit watching my older brother play Call of Duty in the living room. And when I tried to get him to come play with me he told me I was too fat to be attractive to him so he would never date me and I need to leave him alone. When I finally got him to leave, he kicked my dog on his way out. The next time he tried to come over he showed up and knocked on our door. And when I answered he said, "Are you gonna come hang out or what?" I blatantly responded, "No, you're mean to me and I don't like you. Go away," and slammed the door in his face. He was never allowed past our fence ever again. Frick that kid. Lived nearby, came over, ate all the snacks, watched Call of Duty. Sounds like me. I'm sore. Called you fat. Kicked your dog, etc. Okay, so maybe it wasn't me. My older sibling had a slumber party when we were in elementary school. One of the friends, who I'll call C, woke early the next morning, marched over to the bottom of the staircase near my parents' bedroom, and screamed, "Get your butt down here and make my breakfast," to my mother. She barreled down the steps with utter fury in her eyes. C never stayed at our house again. That's incredible. Like, it's actually so far outside my experience that it is hard to believe. When I was 12 had a friend stay the night. Woke up in the middle of the night to find him smashing my little brother's seashell collection. Never let him back over or spoke to him. He moved out of state a month later and never heard from him again. Actually no one I know heard from him after that. On a beach somewhere fulfilling his lifelong goal. One of my little brother's friends. Mum told all the boys to not go in the garden because she was growing habaneros. This kid ignored her. Naturally, he went and messed with the hot peppers just because he could. Then proceeded to be an idiot and touch his eyes. Then went to the bathroom to pee and touched his private parts. It was a whole scene. Instant justice. She stole my mother's mobile phone. This was around 2004 to 2005. While I was asleep she made tons of prank calls to local people. We lived in an incredibly isolated small town. One of the people she called was the elderly grandparents of a boy from our school who were raising him because his parents were dead. She called and called them over and over asking for the boy in creepy tones. They told me later, my mum is a really chill person, but when she woke up to tons of voice messages verbally assaulting her and threatening to go to the police she nearly aborted me. The girl confessed to me, but that was the day after I had to call everyone she rang and apologize to them while they yelled at me. Mostly because my mum wouldn't believe I had no idea what had happened. Safe to say she wasn't allowed back. We were basically best friends. He even slept over a couple of times. Then one day, I fell off my bike really awkwardly and scratched my knee pretty bad. He started laughing but then seemed to panic and rode off. I had to limp home and couldn't walk for the next few days. We never hung out after that. In middle school I became the nerd and he became the leader of the local gang. Sounds like he freaked out when you saw his true colors and realized he needed to find a new friend. Living a new house trying to make friends. My daughter was 6 and her new friend a little older and had been bragged on by the mom as being raised right, attending the Christian school because of the bad influence in the public school, etc. Anyway, my wife is on our back porch watching the girls play in the park about 75 yards away. Suddenly she hears the good Christian girl yell at our daughter, "I said get off the fricking swing." Our daughter had no clue what she meant, just knowing her new friend was flipping out, so ran crying back home. The other mother was in completely denial, saying there was no way her sweet child could have said such a thing, so my wife was obviously mistaken. I so hate parents that put their kid on a pedestal like that. My husband ordered pizza for my daughter and her friend. We'll call her T. He put the pizza $sign on the table next to the front door. When the pizza arrived the $sign was not there. After he paid for the pizza, he had the girls empty their pockets. Of course T had the exact amount he had left on the table in her pocket. She insisted she has brought it from home. After a call to her dad, he insisted she return the money but never made her apologize. Instead, made excuses for her. In retrospect, my daughter realized that there was a direct correlation before T's visits and $sign missing from her bedroom. She was banned from our house. He lived in my neighborhood for a few years. I hung out with him a bit and we played Super Smash Bros. At my house a few times. We went on vacation. Came home and he was in my house playing when we got home. Apparently he broke in to hang out at my house. He tried again and was arrested. They moved out a few months later. The little piece of crap. The incident happened one summer day in 2014. I was babysitting for my best friend so she could go out with her husband. I had babysat numerous times before, but Little Poss's behavior started escalating and I began making unbelievable excuses like I have to do my taxes or I just donated blood to get out of babysitting. But after this one day, I told her flat out I couldn't have him in my house ever again. The evening started with him finding my vitamins while I was in the bathroom and dumping them out all over my carpet. He was 7 so he knew they weren't candy but just wanted to cause a mess. Then he next said he had to go to the bathroom where he proceeded to pull the wet wipes out from a new package and mix them with an entire roll of toilet paper and put them in the bowl of the toilet until the mound was literally overflowing onto the floor. And then he decided to pee all over the mound, the toilet and the floor. My husband came home from work about this time and sternly talked to him about it and we thought he got the message because he didn't act up again for the rest of the night. I wish that's where the story ends. But unfortunately for us, we didn't catch his coup de grace until the next morning. Little Poss enacted such a clever revenge. I can't help but be in awe at his villainy and cleverness. What we didn't find out until the next morning was that Little Poss went into our kitchen and switched off our refrigerator. So when we went to make ourselves breakfast in the morning, a huge puddle of water surrounded the fridge, and all of our food was warm and had to be thrown out. When I recounted all of this to my friend, she admitted that anytime he gets in trouble, he'll switch off the fridge, but she's been able to catch him in the act. Never again. This kid would come over to use our bathroom, just to pee all over the floor. Happened a few times before my parents would tell him to go home. Just imagining some kid walking through your door to pee all over the rug and then leaving is making me laugh. This girl named Kayla who lived in my apartment building came over to watch Mean Girls. After spotting my hamster and seeing corn kernels in his food, she was convinced that he ate popcorn. I told her that he didn't. Despite this, she fed him handfuls of popcorn as she made her way to the bathroom multiple times throughout the movie. The next day, he was dead. I was 8. Hyponatremia sodium overdose. This girl I was friends with grew jealous that I got along with my little sister so well and that we always looked out for each other. This girl is like 5-6 years older than my sister. One day, when no one else was at the playground, she hit my little sister on the head for no dang reason other than jealousy. She was so proud of it too. Banned from our house and, apparently, her mom banned her and her brother from the playground. More than a decade later and I still want to punch her in the face. Ugh, frick you, Vanessa. Sounds like something a Vanessa would do. 11 or 12-year-old boy. Family moved into a house 2 down from me that the owners decided to rent out when they moved. First thing my 9-year-old son tells me it's how cool this kid's throwing knives are. Then tells me he's allowed to pee in the corner of his bedroom. Then tells me he and another neighbor were drinking his mom's wine. Then he smashed another neighbor girl in the face extremely hard with an ice ball. Wet snow he must have worked on for a while. Made her bleed. After all of that, he pulled a knife on another neighborhood boy and kicked his bike over. Also he came into my garage and started going through my tool chest. Parents are tweakers and getting kicked out of the house. Feel bad for the boy. You can hear his mom going crazy on him at all times of day and night. Call CPS. Nobody ever got banned from my house, but I was never allowed at my best friend's house after an incident when I was a little kid, like way back in 2004. Her dad was building a clubhouse outside from wood and scratch materials. My friend got this brilliant idea to throw a bunch of mud on the clubhouse so we could garner sympathy from our other neighbors and get money from them. I think she was inspired by the cartoon Ed, and Eddie. So she and I went outside and started throwing big slabs of mud on the clubhouse. Our hands and arms were covered in mud. Then, her mom ran outside the house and came up to us and started screaming at me, saying I was disrespectful and a disgusting brat. Well, my friend, who was the ringleader of the whole freaking thing, just silently stood there and watched me cry. Then I went home, and the lady called my mom, who beat me senseless. It was awful, and I was never allowed back. After that, I never really went to anybody's house. LMAO. Both your mom and your friend's mom sound awful. My siblings and I were friends with the neighbor girl who was what I would call a brute of a child. She peed on our couch and caught our stove on fire. Separate occasions. The final straw was when she knocked my sister's tooth out. I'm surprised my parents kept letting her come back, but real physical harm was where they decided to draw the line. Caught our stove on fire. I use a natural gas stove and had to read this several times before I figured out why that was a problem. I light my stove on fire every day. When my sister started to date casually at 16, she went out with a boy in her class. He was a nice looking kid, but from a family of weirdos. The boy became obsessed with my sister, waiting for her outside school, telephoning constantly, and following her home trying to get her to like him. One night my sister noticed him standing across the street from our house in the shadows of some trees. He was just staring into our house. My sister got scared. I noticed how dad slipped quietly out the back door. Sneaking to a darkened window, I watched as dad went down the alley behind our house, crossed the street and strolled up the sidewalk to where the boy was hiding behind a tree. My dad, who was 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed about 230 pounds, came up behind the boy, who was about 5 foot 10 inches, and grasped him by the back of the neck. I saw dad turn the boy to face him and get in his face, talking quietly. The boy shook his head no a few times, then nodded yes a few more times. Dad pointed down the street and released the boy, who walked quickly away, never looking back. Dad casually crossed the street and came in. My mom asked, "Where have you been?" "Oh, I just got somewhere," Dad answered. Nobody else had seen this. My sister said the boy never bothered her again. Best dad ever. My first year of college, I had a huge birthday party. The one person that I didn't personally invite blacked out, walked into a house a few doors down, took his shirt off and sat in a closet until the dude who lived there found him. The residents were unbelievably cool considering the situation and kind of laughed it off. So blackout kid comes back to the party, continues being a huge butt, trying to fight people, making girls uncomfortable. Typical douchey college bro stuff. Finally there are a few of us left, ready to crash. The person whose house we were at said something like, "Does anyone need any pillows or blankets?" and blackout bro yells, "Frick you, you piece of crap." I'm a fairly pacifist type of person, but 4 or 5 of us looked at each other and somehow, without ever vocalizing it, like we all just knew what we were gonna do, grabbed him, duct taped him to a plastic chair, and left him on the porch until morning. When we woke up and went out to free him, he was completely silent and had the most embarrassed and regretful look I've ever seen a person have. He probably had no memory what he'd done and thought you all were a bunch of buttholes. My brother had a friend who was a kleptomaniac. He stole things that made absolutely no sense. He stole my Dalmatian backpack that I loved. Mother was P and he was never allowed back in the house. When I caught him stealing money from my mom's jar, it was emergency money we had in case something happened. My mom ended up calling his dad on what happened. I stopped talking to him after that. My little sister was forever banned from a friend's house in high school after she got extremely drunk and ended up puking all over herself in this house and then passed out with no pants on, which happened right when her friend's mom unexpectedly came home early. Then my sister woke up and tried to talk to the mom. Oops. We lived on a farm and my best friend came to stay for the first time. We were outside in the field when we found a blind rabbit. We went to call my dad, who came out to investigate. I was pretty used to this sight by now. There's a common rabbit disease in the UK called myxomatosis, which is a slow and miserable death for a rabbit. The best thing to do is put it down immediately. So that's what my dad did. Picked it up and twisted its neck. I don't know why neither me or my dad warned her that it was about to happen, but she was crying non-stop until her mum came to pick her up. She's still my best friend, but her parents never let her stay again. Unrelated, but hey, my username is finally relevant. I was about 14. I had just made a new friend and was excited to have her over for a sleepover. My parents set us up in the basement so we can watch TV and be loud without waking them up and just have fun. She saw my mom's new digital camera and decided to have a photo shoot. Sure, why not? She took a few normal pictures of me and had me take some of her, and then we awkwardly took some pictures together. A few hours later, maybe 11 PM, my parents are asleep and my older brother comes home. We decide to go on Facebook and talk to some of her guy friends. He asks us to call him. She obliged, but we didn't have cell phones at 14, so she used my parents' landline. She was talking to him alone, so I only heard her side, but it was really flirty things like, yeah, we can make out and maybe you can touch my boobs. I got weirded out, so went to watch TV while she was talking to this guy, and out of nowhere, my brother comes down and tells us to get off the phone and go to bed or he's going to tell my parents. She gets off the phone and that's that. Or so I think. About a week later, my parents call me and demand to speak to me. They were looking through my mom's camera and came across the pictures from that night. Apparently, after I'd gone to sleep, she decided to use my mom's camera to take some sexy pictures of herself. I don't know what she did or planned to do with them, but there were about 30 pictures of her wearing less and less clothes until she's completely naked. I started crying, saying that I didn't know. I was asleep. I told them about the phone call and had my brother tell them I wasn't involved. I was just watching TV and wanting to go to sleep. Needless to say, I wasn't too sad about not seeing her again. Yikes, child pornography. Remember Pop Rocks? The broken up rock candy that crackles in your mouth? They were all the rage when I was in 3rd grade. I lamented my longing for Pop Rocks to my dad. Turns out he worked for the company that made Pop Rocks. He was thrilled to feel like a superhero to his little girl, and that Christmas I got a manufacturer's box full of Pop Rocks. There were probably 100 packages of Pop Rocks, and I felt like the coolest kid ever, marking it rain and giving them to my friends. As spring broke, the neighbor kid John came over. He saw the box full of Pop Rocks. Before I could stop him, he grabbed the box and ran outside. I chased him down to the creek near our house and got there just as he flipped the box upside down and emptied the contents into the creek. My heart broke as the reason for my newfound popularity crackled, fizzled, and faded away in the sunlight. I asked him why and he said he just wanted to see what would happen. My dad asked what happened to all the Pop Rocks and I didn't have the heart to tell him. But I didn't let John into my house after that. What a turd. My brother used to have a very expensive drum kit in our garage. One afternoon my younger sister has some friends over. They're all about 13, just messing around and hanging out. Uneventful as far as we knew. Until the next day my brother goes to play and one of his cymbals is missing. And the expensive one too. No sign of it, it's just been lifted. Didn't take CSI to figure out one of my sister's friends must have taken it as nobody else had access. My dad, normally a very short-tempered man, calmly asked my sister for the phone numbers of her friends. He calls each one and explains that he is so and so's father and one of their cymbals has gone missing. If they know anything about it being misplaced, could they let him know? No questions asked. Or he will call the police and pass on their details as the last known house guests. He adds some stuff about us leaving the garage untouched so they can dust for prints etc etc. Miraculously one of the boys texts him to say he has it. My dad arranges to meet him, alone. Doesn't take my bro or sis to avoid an emotional exchanges, and the cymbal is returned. The boy mutters some excuse about getting mixed up and thinking it was his, but my dad stays calm and says it's all fine now. But obviously he is under no circumstances welcome in our house anymore, and if my dad ever sees him there again he will physically pick him up and toss him into the street. She locked my sister and I in a zip-up hamper, then proceeded to kick us. She also got bit by our rats after being told multiple times that she wasn't allowed to hold them. Apparently her thumb was infected and she had to go to the ER. Her mom wanted my mom to pay the medical bill. I think I was that kid. In middle school I thought that The Hills Have Eyes would be an appropriate movie for my Friday the 13th birthday. 15 prepubescent screaming girls later and I never hosted another birthday party. I did this too. Except my friends weren't little B, so we all still hung out. He came into my house to play N64 while my brother and I were at school. My mom apparently left the door open while she showered, so he just came in and made himself at home. I don't know why he thought this was okay. We were in 5th grade. He asked to use the washroom and then wiped crap on the walls and on the sink and stuff. I went to his house and told his dad, and then the kid came over to clean it up. He didn't do a good job though. After reading you went to his house, I thought you shat all over his place in revenge. Guess you did the more diplomatic thing though. So one time, this new neighbor wanted to introduce their granddaughter to everyone on the block cause she'd be visiting a lot. Anyways, the little girl was a basic brat but we let her come over and freak up our toys anyway. Then she had to go to the bathroom. She didn't come out for a good 30 minutes. When she did, she said she had to go and left. My sister and I wondered why she was in there so long, so we went to investigate. That little crap not only left her diarrhea stained panties in our toilet, but also left a bunch of handprints that were definitely not paint all over the walls and the toilet seat and the bathtub and pretty much the whole bathroom. My mum was pee. She wasn't phased while cleaning it because she's seen worse, but then she went over to the neighbor's house and forbid that girl to ever set foot in our house again. Mums are so badass and nonchalant about poop. No matter what, I've seen worse. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.